Hey guys, today we have Eric Thayne, filmmaker, entrepreneur, overall creative. I'm so excited to get to chat today. I've been following along and honestly looking up to you for many years, and it's gonna be so cool to just chat through life, work, creativity, filmmaking, entrepreneurship, all the things. So let's dive in. First off, some of our people listening, they may not know who you are, though I think most probably do. Maybe tell us just the basics about yourself, life, where you're at, family, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, first things first, how long have we known each other?
2017.
Was it 17
Yeah,
when we
6 years ago, we kind of had that first little partnership we did.
And today is actually the first time we're meeting in person. But we've known each other for a while.
Yeah, that's 2023. A lot of things can be done online.
So that was when you guys were getting started with FILMPAC. And
yeah.
I was still really new with Cinema Mastery and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are the days.
Yeah.
Crazy how much has changed since then.
That was wild. We were a very small team at that point.
Yeah, same. It was like
very small. Yeah, it was like me and another dude halftime kind of.
Me and my wife.
Yeah,
pretty much. Yeah, so I live in Boise, Idaho. I've got a wife and almost 3 kids, so we've got a third one on the way. So we're gonna have 3 girls, which will be really fun. That's right. Yep. So just a few months here. But yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, a creative. I love filmmaking, music, art, graphic design. I started out I've been doing creative stuff since I was a kid, played the piano since I was really little. And so music, I was a marching band geek, the whole
What'd
thing.
you play?
I was in the drum line.
All right.
I was actually the drum line captain.
Nice.
So yeah, I did all that all through high school, all through college, always been in creative endeavors, but then all enveloped by entrepreneurship. It was always this desire to how do I figure out how to make money at this? And I think from a very young age had a desire to do something big or do more than your average person, I guess is what I would say.
You know, it's funny when I have these guests on here, sometimes I feel so connected in a lot of ways. I know we just met face to face for the first time, but so many similarities and crossovers. And I think kind of what I know from you that, yes, you have experience in filmmaking, entrepreneurship and all that, but also I think you're like a general creative, an innovator and visionary. And I hope that, I have those same kind of characteristics. I try to at least. And so
for sure,
it'll be fun to talk through some of these topics today.
Yeah. My whole mission, I feel in life is to get more people to see themselves as creators. So, and we'll talk more about that today probably, but that's really the whole goal is I think all entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur or you love filmmaking or photography or underwater basket weaving, whatever it is, whatever your thing is your art. That's your craft. But then everyone is a creator in some respect. We all have something that we want to create, that we want to put into the world, that we want to build. And that's your craft as a creator. And it's the more people that can lean into that and get clear on what is that thing that I love to do and that I'm uniquely good at, and lean into that and really focus on doing that thing, and then letting all the other creators do the thing that they're good at.
Yep.
It just create I think it makes the world a better place, and so that's what it's all about.
Preach. Love it. So we talked about it a little bit in your intro, but what did you want to be when you were younger, or when did kind of this vision for being a creative entrepreneur, when did that really hit?
So that was, I would say, when I was 10 years old, or maybe even a little bit younger than that was when. Yeah, it was early. Yeah. I got into creative things, piano and musical instruments and everything, probably about age 6 or 7. So started early with that. I can remember my first desires to be an entrepreneur being around 10 years old. And I don't remember exactly specifically what it was, but I remember I would see products and go man, somebody made that, somebody produced that, somebody put that into the world. How did that happen? And I had this kind of curiosity about it. How did they do that? Or how could I do something like that? And because of that, I think that's what drove me for a long time into creating music and creating films and videos and all that kind of stuff, because I was I can do something with this. I don't think I knew what it was yet, but I knew that there was something that I could do. And so, what I wanted to be when I grew up was an entrepreneur and a creator. Yeah. It really was that. And so I got into a lot of creative realms. Graphic design. My very first business was actually selling T-shirt designs on MySpace.
Oh,
Remember
nice.
MySpace?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I would sell T-shirt designs to screamo bands on MySpace, literally all over the world. I would take payment over PayPal, I didn't realize how revolutionary this was, because this is 2003, right? And so
wow.
PayPal was like brand new. And I was just a kid. I was like, this is the way the world works. But, now I realize that was new. That was not normal.
Yeah.
But that's what I was doing. I started making videos when I was around 10 years old. I remember taking like my parents' camcorder and like making videos with friends and stuff, and just got into that.
Yeah.
So it was graphic design, art, music. I ended up starting a recording studio, made YouTube videos, like produced video content for people, like kind of ran the whole gamut. I did iPhone development for a while, so a little bit of everything.
All over the place, man. I love it.
And then, but all of it kind of was weaved together by this idea of like entrepreneurship. It was like if I were to give my teenage and my childhood years a theme, it was always, how do I figure out what it is that I love to do? And then how do I figure out how to make money doing it? And I think the entrepreneurship drove the creativity, and the creativity drove the entrepreneurship.
Yes, you nailed it right there. I think that sometimes can get maybe misunderstood, and some people come at it purely from a creative side, and that's great. If you just want to create and you want it to be a side hobby for the rest of your life, that's great, and that's totally fine, and I totally respect that. But
Sure, yeah.
But if you want it to be your like bread and butter, 30, 40, 50-hour week thing, you got to figure out the other side, which is the business side, and how do you actually make money creating the things you love? How do you
Yeah.
make money doing the things that you're passionate about? So it sounds like you learned some of those lessons early on. I wasn't as fortunate. I was more in my 20s before I realized, like, okay, I love being creative, but I don't know how to make money doing that. So then I had to learn those lessons later.
Yeah, totally. It's the combination of those two things. Like I like creativity without entrepreneurship to me is boring, and entrepreneurship without creativity is boring.
Yes.
It's like it doesn't work for me. So like my creativity oftentimes is driven by a desire to like build something in the world, to sell it to people. It's why, like, as a filmmaker, I never got into Hollywood movies or short films or anything like that. Narrative work, like it just never was interesting to me. I was like commercial game, 100%. Like I wanted to do commercials, and I was always inspired by commercials and the cinematography of them, the directing of them. The ability to tell a story in a very short time frame was always intriguing to me. But I think ultimately, if I'm being honest, I was driven by the desire to make money from it.
And
And
that's okay.
making money with short films and in Hollywood is hard,
Yes.
right? And that's no offense to anybody that wants to do that. Like if that's your career path and that's your passion, like go for it. Like,
Yes.
go all in, make it happen. But I just have that entrepreneurial drive where it was like, how do I make money from this? And what's the fastest path to building a lifestyle for myself and my family, and building something that's going to impact people as fast as possible? And so like the creativity was driven by the entrepreneurship, but then on the flip side, the entrepreneurship is also driven by the creativity. If you look at me now, especially, this is very noticeable. Me and my team and our company and our core values, it's very much rooted in creativity. Creating, like, everything that we do needs to be done beautifully. It needs to be done well. It should be done professionally, like the best customer experience. Like those are some of our core values that are infused into everything that we do. Whereas there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, sadly, that like put so much energy and effort into marketing the crap out of things, and then like when it comes to actually delivering a product, it's kind of like, I don't know.
Yeah, and
You know what I mean?
I think when I talk about my work to people, sometimes even fellow filmmakers in the industry, fellow creatives, I should say, I think it's off-putting because sometimes I'll kind of word it like I'm a businessman first, and then a creative, and then a filmmaker. I think that's off-putting, but really, I don't think it's like a 50-50 thing. And I want your take on this. To me, it's like it's 100% entrepreneurship, 100% creativity.
Yeah, it's all in on both.
simultaneously. Yeah,
Right?
It's everything.
Yeah, totally. I see it that way too. I went through a lot of years of trying to decide, like, am I more of an entrepreneur or am I more of an artist? And the way I see it now is that like everyone is an artist, right? Entrepreneurs are artists. Your art is building businesses. Mm-hmm. It's networking. It's growing things. It's building things. So now I just see everyone as an artist. And this philosophy actually came to me from a speech from Tony Robbins. You ever listen to Tony Robbins? So I was at an event a few years ago, and he was there speaking at it. And he got up and he started talking about the difference between an entrepreneur and an artist. And how an entrepreneur is like business focused, the artist is really focused on the craft, and how artists are typically very good at the solution. They get started based on like, this is the solution that I want to provide to people. What they need to do is figure out a problem to solve with that solution. Entrepreneurs, on the other hand, are better at going out and finding a problem to solve and then figuring out a solution to solve it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So like if you're a filmmaker, for example, filmmaking is a solution to a lot of problems out there. And so if you're a smart filmmaker and you want to make money out of it, you got to figure out how to solve people's problems with your art. Mm-hmm. And so he talked about that, and I thought that was really interesting. And then the epiphany hit me when he asked the crowd, he says, which one do you think I am, an entrepreneur or an artist? And if you know Tony Robbins, like he has multiple businesses, like he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, like teams of people like crazy.
Seems like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's the obvious answer.
So everyone in the crowd yelled out, entrepreneur, right? Me included. And he goes, no, I'm an artist. Yeah. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I realized for a long time I had been pushing to be an entrepreneur, like to be that persona, that identity of like, I'm an entrepreneur. And in that moment when I saw that Tony Robbins is an artist, I was like, oh, you know what? I'm an artist. And so Tony Robbins is like, his art is motivating people, speaking, doing interventions, helping people. Like that's what he does best. When Tony Robbins is doing an event, he doesn't sell the tickets. He doesn't fly the plane. He doesn't fill it up with gas. He doesn't put the event on. He doesn't do any of that stuff. He shows up and he does his craft, which is motivating people and speaking to them and inspiring them. And then he leaves. Yeah. And that's it. And it really hit me that like that's what it really means to be a creator, is that you have your craft, your thing that you're really good at, and you show up to do that thing, and all the other creators around you are doing their thing, and it all becomes this creator economy, right? So the guy who's flying the plane, you know, Tony's like really expensive jet, they're a creator. They're doing their favorite thing, the thing that they're uniquely good at and passionate about, which is flying planes. And so the more everyone can lean into their craft and the thing that they do, the more everything just works better.
I love that. I have a little sidebar question for you, actually. And it's this, that, I have several different businesses, the main one being FILMPAC, but I think that there are two ways to approach entrepreneurship and ideation of new business ideas. One is think of something you're really good at, where there's a pain point, in the industry, and kind of try to solve that. There's another route, and I've thought about this for myself too, is what is something I'm really bad at? And then what's the solution to that? And that's actually expanded my mind. And I've thought, I'm really bad at giving gifts, for example. I'm just not thoughtful like that. And like, is there some sort of like app or something I could develop that like automates the gift give, that, but ignore that idea. But that whole concept of like, are you coming at it with your strength or are you coming at it with your weakness? And I think that applies too when you're thinking about even how you delegate certain roles and stuff. And so anyway, I guess I wanted your take on that. I don't know if it's kind of a thought I've been developing over the years of how do you ideate and come up with these like, entrepreneurial ideas?
Yeah. Well, so what I would say is that every weakness has an equal and opposite strength. So I don't even look at myself anymore in terms of strengths and weaknesses, although that is one way to look at it. It's more like I just have like a personality. I have a character type. I have like, this is the way I am. And that being the way that I am is going to have advantages and disadvantages in different situations. And so it's really more looking at it that way in terms of this is not what I'm like. Maybe I'm bad at something. That's fine. But the reason I'm bad at that is because I'm really good at this. Yeah. Right. And so it's like, which one do you want? You can't have all of it.
Right.
And so when you're really good at something, it means that you're probably really bad at something else that's replacing that, right?
Guilty.
And so the goal is like, how do I find a team of people that can fill in my blind spots, right? And so I can just be a creator in my space, what I'm really good at, like focus on those things that I'm good at, and then like other people are going to come in and fill in the weaknesses.
Love it. I know my first exposure to video and filmmaking was back when I was like 17 years old, maybe 18 years old. Tell me about your first time, experiencing creating a video.
So I remember getting started making videos when I was about 10 years old. And my parents had a camcorder. I don't know if you remember those camcorders that had like hi-8 tapes in them.
That's what I started with, man.
So you put the tape in and it's like, we didn't have editing software. I was 10 years old. Like it was like, you got a camera. That's what you have to work with. And I wanted to get into making videos and wanted to try stuff out. I was a superhero nerd. So I loved Spider-Man and Superman, and I thought those were so cool. And so I wanted to make videos that looked like superhero movies. And so I had this friend, we were actually living in South Africa at the time. Wow. And I had this friend who I went to school with, and he was my best friend, and he also loved making videos. And so we would take my parents' camcorder, and we'd go out and shoot these videos and try to recreate the special effects that we saw in movies, having no VFX software, no editing software. Like we would hit record and then film a segment that was like one angle, and then cut it, and then move the camera to the next angle, and then like start recording again. Yeah. It had like a little like rewind button that you could go and find the exact spot, and then you would pause it and then hit record, and then try to create continuity between the shots in terms of like, okay, stand like this, right? And we would do stuff like that. We'd do creative things where we'd go, we'd get up on top of my parents' roof of their house and start running across the roof and like getting video of it, and then like pretend to jump and then cut, and then like go to like the trampoline and like jump down off the roof onto the trampoline, and like stuff like that to cut together these videos. I remember one we did where we would take our shadow, so like the shadow on the ground, and we had a little rock sitting there with some fishing line tied to it, and so we were trying to make it look like the shadow was pushing the rock along the ground. Or we do like Spider-Man things where I'd be on the floor crawling like Spider-Man, but we'd turn the camera sideways so it looked like I was crawling up a wall.
It's creative.
So we got super creative with these things, and I still have all these videos, and it's fun to go back and revisit them. But the interesting thing is that mentality of working with what you have without having any editing software or anything to like doctor this up or anything, like what you get in camera is what you get. End of story. That philosophy has carried through until now.
Oh, totally.
With all of my filmmaking. In fact, if you go through any of my courses, you will hear that over and over again, that it's not about the edit. It's not about the color grade. It's not about the software that you have or even the camera that you have. Really good filmmaking happens in front of the camera. So it's the lighting, it's the wardrobe, it's the setup, the sound design, not the sound design, but the audio, the person that your talent, your actors, right? And so it's, I think that my filmmaking style and like my video style looks the way that it does and has the look that it does because of that mentality of trying to get everything perfect in front of the camera before ever hitting record. And if you think about it, like Hollywood spends a lot of money to do exactly that. It's the reason why movies cost so much, is because they got to have the right actor, the right wardrobe, the right set. Like they change the color of items on the set to make it match right. Like the amount of detail and thought that goes into having control over every aspect of everything that's happening in front of the camera is what makes movies so expensive, right? They got it. They just have to have all that.
Yeah, the whole like fix it in post, kind of. It's almost a meme in our industry. That's not excellent. It's not. That's not pursuing excellence. At least not anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like you look at movies like The Matrix, for example, where people will say it has an iconic color scheme, right? The green and the grays and everything. That didn't happen in post, right? Like, yes, there's a color grade on it, but like they didn't just shoot anything anywhere and then make it green in post. They specifically, if you watch that movie, everything in the background is gray. And the reason why is because that gray can be color graded into green without causing problems. If everything was like all purple and pink and like bright colors, the color grade wouldn't work. You wouldn't have that aesthetic. Same thing with like another iconic one is Amélie, right? Is that the one, the green and the red? Yeah. So Amélie has the green and red color scheme. It's not green and red because they color graded it that way. It's because the set design is literally green and red. Right. And so, when I'm teaching color grading, for example, I would always tell people like your color grade starts with your set design. That's the beginning of it. Even nowadays when I'm shooting content, like I don't do a lot of like big films or anything anymore. I'm shooting a lot of content, but like if you watch my content on Instagram, I don't color grade any of it. It's probably the number one question I get asked is, how did you color grade this? And the answer is always like, I don't color grade it. Everything happens in camera. If I want the light on the back of my head to be orange, it's an orange light. Yeah. If I want it to be purple, it's a purple light. If I get the skin tones right, the color right, everything in camera first. And part of that is for the production process. It makes it easier to pump out content faster if we don't have to go through that phase of color grading to get it done. But it's just my approach is, how do I make it look the way that I want it to in camera? And then I don't have to do a lot of post-production. It's already done.
Yeah. And I think that's a good challenge even for me. I think admittedly, like sometimes I have that thought of like, oh, like I'll fix it in post. I can color it, that kind of thing later. But I do know that some of my best work, I know it's when I did put the extra effort in, and our team put the extra effort into like dialing in perfect on set in the moment. So I think that's a very, very true.
I'll give you a really good example of this. There was a girl that I worked with. Her name was Elizabeth, and she came through one of my programs. It was in my mastermind, and I was helping her grow her business. She was brand new to filmmaking, like had some experience in LA as an actress, did that whole thing, and then she moved to New York and said, I want to be a director. She wanted to be a director and direct commercial films. No experience, didn't even own a camera. She had shot like a few videos for a couple people. That was it. So she was borrowing a camera from a friend. So just to give you an idea of like the skill level she was at. We started working together, and I said, okay, we're going to shoot a passion project. We're going to put this thing together. And she went into the entire project, not with the skill of a filmmaker or the eye of a director or anything like that. She went in and she put so much time and effort and energy into the pre-production. And that was why the commercial ended up turning out amazing, like incredible. It looked like a legit commercial. It was for Bose. It was a passion project. You never would have known that like Bose didn't hire her to produce this commercial because it looked incredible. And the reason, again, was not because she had so much skill or was so good with the camera. It was her first time ever shooting on a Red, which we shot it on. She'd never even touched one before, seen one. But it was because of the time she put into pre-production, getting the right people, the right locations, the right time of day, everything sorted out beforehand so that when we went into it, it all looked amazing. Yeah. And I've seen that over and over again. The principles of cinematography are really easy to learn. Like you can learn them in a few hours. And lighting is not that complicated. It's really simple. If you understand the basics. And like if you go through my courses on it, like I try to boil it down to the simplest principles that you can go, oh, okay, this is what I need to do every single time. Yeah. And it makes it really simple. So the cinematography is not that hard. Like you can spend your entire life getting better at it, of course. But to get to like a certain threshold of quality, it's not that difficult. Yeah. What's more difficult is actually taking the time to like put the effort into producing an amazing production. And I found with all the people that I've worked with, the ones who produce the best work were the ones that put the most time into pre-production. Yeah. And I can feel the smiles and warmth and affirmation coming from my producer who's sitting right here. She's feeling like, yes, affirmed. And yeah, and that's totally true. I think even me, sometimes I like to take credit for like, oh, this is a great shoot. Yeah, because I captured it so well. And it's like, hello, like my team, it's a team effort, every part of the production, from the concept, pre-production, on-set production, post, all that contributes to like the good, It's like that thing, product. It goes to the next level where like when you're a cinematographer and you shoot something that's amazing and then somebody looks at it and they're like, wow, that's an amazing camera. Oh my gosh. Right? That happened. That happened last week. After we joked about it, it happened on set last week, and I was like, "Yep, it is a great camera. It's true. It is a great camera." Also, I have logged my 10,000 hours holding this camera. Yeah, exactly, exactly. I always talk about it as in terms of like a signal chain. And if you know like the audio signal chain, like audio comes, if you're singing, it comes out of your mouth into the microphone through a cable into the computer, that whole thing. There's also like a cinematography signal chain, and that's the way that I look at it. You have an image that's created actually in set design and in wardrobe and everything. Then it gets captured through a lens and into a camera. Then that goes onto a card, goes into a computer, that goes through post-processing and that whole thing. But the adjustments that you make to your image at the beginning of the signal chain have a way bigger effect on the quality of the final product than the ones that you make at the end of the signal chain. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that most filmmakers or newer filmmakers put way too much emphasis on the end of the signal chain, the post-processing, the sound design, the color grade, the transitions, the effects, like the stuff that you see all over the place. It's like that's what everybody's talking about. Nobody's talking about wardrobe, right? Because it's not the sexy thing that everyone wants to talk about, right?
Yeah.
But like the wardrobe you choose, the locations you choose, like that's the stuff that happens at the beginning of the signal chain is what actually makes the difference.
I know that for me in the last year to 2 years, there's been so many transitions, and I've learned a lot that I have shared and I can share. But I'm curious, like maybe what is the biggest lesson that you have learned in the past year?
Yeah. So the biggest lesson that I've learned in the last year is, I would say, is to let go. And what I mean by that, well, let me explain what I mean by that. So about a year and a half ago, my business all but crashed in a really hard way. Like going into lots of debt, like just money flying out the door, not being able to recoup it, didn't know what's going on. A lot of it had to do with we were heavily reliant on Facebook ads for traffic, and you know what happened with
all changed.
Yeah, you probably felt it too.
Yeah.
The whole legal battle between Apple and Facebook, and that whole thing, just like, you know, if your entire business is built on Facebook ads and Facebook goes down, which they did in a way, they lost like $12 billion that year because of that change that Apple made. So if your business is built off of Facebook and Facebook goes down, then you go down too.
Yeah.
And that started happening. We were right in the middle of hiring a sales team. So like when you're hiring and training a sales team, you can't stop the lead flow. Otherwise, you don't have anything to train them on. And so had to get them going. Like we had to keep spending money. We were spending sometimes as much as $3,000 just to book a call with a lead, which for anybody that doesn't know numbers, that's a lot. Yeah. That's way too much.
Yeah.
And so like you think about it, you know, if you're only closing 10% of those, which is like an average close rate, 10 or 20%, then like your product would have to be $30,000 in order to break even. So now you see what I mean? Like it was a problem. Yeah. And we continued spending, we continued losing money, and it was a very hard time, both in the business externally and then of course emotionally internally. Was really bothering me a lot. And I went through a phase of depression and just a lot of internal struggle and like wondering what my worth was and whether I could continue doing this and whether it made sense to, and just thinking that I had nothing to give to the world. And I remember I got on a call with one of my coaches, and I was lucky to have a really good mindset coach who helped me understand a principle that I hadn't really thought about before. The first thing she helped me understand was that the internal struggle that I was feeling was not due to the business. So that was the first thing, is it's not because of the business. It's not the business's fault. It's your reaction to the business. Like why does the business failing affect you so much? What is actually hurting on the inside because you're not being successful? And that sent me down a whole path of internal self-awareness and like doing a lot of inner work in terms of like, why is this bothering me so much?
Where's
like,
your identity found? And all
that? Like, what is it? And what I found, and this was for me, so this is personal, but I think it relates to a lot of people, whether they realize it or not, is that what was driving me at the time was a need for validation, need for approval, need for other people to see me as successful. And so if you can imagine, if that's your need, that's your craving, that's your addiction, and you're not successful, it hurts, right? And that's basically what was happening. So I was in that stage where like I clearly needed people to see me as successful, and it got to a point where I couldn't put on the facade anymore because I wasn't. I was just struggling a lot. And one of the things that she taught me, and this is something I'll never forget, and this completely changed the entire trajectory of my life over the last year and a half, was this idea of letting go. Letting go of the need to be validated, letting go of the need to be successful, to be seen as successful, the need to make money, which is very hard to do when you're not making money, right? It's very hard to not need money when you need money, right? So I had to learn how to let go of that And the reason is because when you let go of that need for a result, for an outcome, it lets you actually get back to doing what you love because you love it and for no other reason. And that's really what started happening over the last year and a half that my life is indistinguishable now from when it was a year and a half ago.
Externally and internally?
Both, yeah. And really what happened is I learned how, I'll be working on this for a long time, but I learned how to let go of that need for an outcome, for validation, for something to happen, and really just find joy in the process, in the journey, and just doing what I love to do. Creating for me first, letting my creativity be born from within, from what I want to create. What do I want to do? What do I want to put into the world? And the paradox is that when you stop focusing on trying to make money and you stop focusing on trying to make what people are going to love, and you just start creating what you want to create, it actually attracts more people to you and makes people more interested in you. And it honestly attracts more money and wealth as well, because what I always say is if you're pursuing something, it's because it's running away. So by letting go of that, it's all coming back just on its own. And I think this is something that a lot of creatives struggle with, because there's a lot of pressure out there as a creative, whatever your art is, whether you're an entrepreneur or a filmmaker, or photographer, or whatever it is, there's a lot of pressure to create for other people's validation, meaning for their money, for an outcome that they want, for social media following, for likes, for comments, engagement. And a lot of times that drives us to create. But if you're pursuing that, like I said, it's because it's running away. And when you can actually get back in touch with, why am I doing this? What do I actually love to do? And how can I do this just because I love to do it? And then focus on just becoming the best in the world at that thing and going to the highest level that you possibly can, becoming the highest version of yourself. It's like all of those external outcomes, they will just flock to you like a magnet.
It's funny you bring this up, because I remember actually about a year and a half ago, we had a FaceTime call. I don't know if you remember this. And it was when my business was, we were having to, make some changes and rethink some things. And I remember having this sense when I talked to you, maybe you were just coming out of this season for yourself. I'm not sure exactly where it fell, but I remember having this sense with you that that entrepreneurship was something that you did, but it wasn't who you are, and you weren't defined by it. I remember thinking that there was a healthy level of detachment, because I think there has to be a little bit of a detachment from your identity, and that actually did stick with me. And it's funny that you're bringing this up, because that impacted me a year and a half ago. So thanks for bringing that perspective back then, and once again today. I think that's really,
it must have been, it must have been soon after when all this was happening, because I wouldn't have had that mindset about it before that happening. It's you have to go through those trials in order to learn the things that you need to learn to get to the next level. And that was the big lesson that I had to learn to get to that level. And so I don't remember that conversation. I remember we talked. I don't remember exactly what we talked about.
Yeah, it was subtle, but I remember thinking I think I feel like you had a healthier perspective on work and in life than I did at the time.
Yeah, it was probably just gaining it.
We're all just learning here, man. We're all just
amazing.
Learn as we go. Changing gears for a second, I know that in many of your pursuits, you've had an ability to attract clients. And I know that we have a lot of, listeners who are, freelancers, filmmakers, people looking for projects. What piece of advice, one or two or three pieces, but maybe one, would you give to those people who are looking to attract new clients?
So I'll give a basic formula that kind of is derived from what I've spent a lot of years teaching filmmakers, but it applies to any type of creative or entrepreneur or whatever. And it's a 3-step formula. Number one is just get really, really good at your craft. I think it's a step that a lot of people skip, or they're like, I'm just going to go out there and market it and get clients and sell it and everything. And you can do that and you can get clients and it will work. But if you really, really, if you're in this for the long term and you really want to build something that is going to last for a long time, that's going to grow, that's going to be as big as you want it to be, just focus on getting really good at it. So with our filmmakers, the very first step was you have to go through my cinematography programs. If you're going to be a filmmaker, you have to be really good at cinematography. And again, like I said earlier, it's not that hard to learn. I'll teach you the basics. We'll figure out how to do it, but you got to get good at it, and you got to be good at what you do, because I think there's a lot of filmmakers out there that are trying really hard to pitch themselves to clients, and they're wondering why nobody's buying. And this might sound mean, but in a lot of cases, it's just, you're just not good enough yet, right? I mean, these people are looking for somebody who's talented, and it's the reason why you can't charge a lot of money, because people are going to pay the big bucks to the people who are really good at what they do and have a track record and are proven, and you may not be there yet. And that's fine. Like, just accept that, like, oh, I'm here right now. I need to get there, and let's just focus on getting better at what I do. So that's the first thing, is like, get really good at whatever it is that you do. The second thing that we would always teach is to do a passion project. And a passion project is, I've got to show potential clients what I can do. Now, for filmmakers, and you can apply this to any creative field, but for filmmakers, it was, you've got this portfolio of work that typically what they would do is they put together their portfolio, and it's all their past client work. And it's clients that have paid them $100 or maybe $500 or $1,000. They didn't have a budget. They didn't have a vision for it. They literally were strapped for budget, just producing whatever they could to try and take home $90 out of that $100. And so by nature, the videos are not that good, right? They're just, you didn't have what you needed in order to really produce your vision. And so a passion project just skips over all that. It cuts the client out of the situation, who's breathing down your neck, who's telling you what to do, who's maybe making you make changes in the edit that you wouldn't do as a creative. Totally. And let's be honest, like, if you're getting paid by a client, you got to do what the client tells you to do. That's totally fine. But their decisions are not always going to be the best for the creativity of the project. So when you do a passion project, you cut the client out of the equation. You don't have to do what they're telling you to do. You just create something that is 100% what you want to do. Now, if you're willing to make the investment and take the risk to put a lot of money and time and energy and effort into producing something amazing, that one video can be the thing that completely changes your entire business. That's what happened for me. This is how I got started, is I learned how to do passion projects and how to do them correctly in a way that makes the work look like, changed my portfolio so that it was on a completely different level. So I always joke and say that most filmmakers' portfolios are like a museum of antiques. It's like all this work that I did 5 years ago, and it's like, here's everything that I've ever done and whatever I can show you. And I always tell them, like, literally one really good passion project in your portfolio is way more powerful than 20 past client videos where you didn't have a good enough budget, you didn't have the resources you needed to be able to make it work. That one video can make crazy things happen for you. I was telling you about Elizabeth earlier. Yeah. She did that passion project for Bose. Within a few months, she got hired to direct a commercial film in Saint-Emilion, France, big budget commercial, to go out there and direct this commercial. She actually came back and hired me to come DP it. So I went out to France with her, and we spent a week filming in Saint-Emilion, a very prestigious wine region. And it was one of the coolest projects ever. And she literally, in the shortest amount of time that you possibly could, went from, I don't even own a camera and have shot like 3 videos, to now I'm running an agency and producing like big budget commercial films. Yeah. And it was all because of a passion project. So the passion project is huge. And then the third step is, once you have that really good passion project, a really good example of what you can do, and by the way, not just something that you did for somebody, but like the best example, then you go pitch it to people and you go take it out there. And if you did it right, if you really put the effort into it and got it right, which, by the way, sometimes it doesn't happen the first try. And so you do another one. It's totally fine. But if you got it right, you'll notice that when you show it to people, their eyes light up. They go, whoa. They start asking questions. They automatically start asking you, tell me more about what you do. Give me more information. And when that happens, you know you got it right. And now your goal is just get as many people as possible to watch that thing. Because you just know that if they watch it, they're going to start asking those questions. It's going to open up those sales conversations, and you can start landing clients.
Valuable information, guys. Listen closely. So what role do you think, in today's world, what role does social media play in the ability to get new clients and new work and promote your own work?
Yeah, this is a good one. So what I always say is, social media is marketing today. In today's day and age, that's what marketing is. So when people tell me, I hear this all the time. Probably one of the most common things I hear is, I don't want to make social media content. I'm not the type of person. I don't like social media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm basically like, what you're telling me is I don't want to market my business, right? I'm not interested. And let's be real, like in the grand scheme of things, like this idea that like, well, I just don't like making social media content is very much a first world problem. Because we're like, oh, it's so hard and I have to put so much effort into it. You know what? It used to be a lot harder. You go back like 20, 30 years ago, we had phone books, right? There were billboards, radio, TV. It was very cost prohibitive to get things out there. You didn't get that much reach. Like how many people would actually find you in a phone book? Those were the options available to you. We didn't have social media. So like we live in a world now where there's this tool that is just absolutely incredible and it gives you like massive amounts of reach for free and it's really easy to do. Everyone has access to it. There's no barriers to entry. And then people are just like, yeah, but I don't like making social media content. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, you don't like marketing your business. You don't like making money, right? And so if you're running any kind of business or if you're a creator or an entrepreneur and you're not leveraging social media to build your following and get your message out there, like, what are you doing? Yeah. Why are you not taking advantage of the most powerful tool you have at your disposal to get your message in front of as many people as possible?
Yeah. You know, one effort I'm always trying to make is to not become a dinosaur, archaic. And it's like, I'm always trying to figure out, okay, how do I stay relevant as I get older? I'm 38 now. How do I stay up to date with current technologies and AI and what's happened, everything, you know? And I guess I'm curious, how do you stay in the know? How do you keep a pulse on everything that's going on?
Yeah, so when it comes to technology, I'm quite a bit of a tech nerd. Like I love tech. I follow like subreddits and blogs and everything around like things that I'm passionate about, most technology. So I usually know what's going on in terms of new cameras or new gear that's coming out or what's happening with Tesla or Apple, any of the companies that I follow. And so for me, that's not really an issue, keeping up to date on that kind of stuff. When it comes to trends, like especially with social media, algorithm updates and trends and things like that, you know, I'm on social media, I'm creating content, I'm watching what's going on. We run an agency helping people with this. So like I'm in that and I see that as well. But for me, the answer really is like having a really good team who does it, who keeps us up to date, because the way that I look at my company is that like it's got to operate without me and like I can't be the bottleneck. So I've got a really good social media strategist right now who's just like absolutely incredible. She's always on social media. It's one of those things where, you know, they say like be a producer, not a consumer. And I always tell her, I was like, no, you continue being a consumer. I want you watching everything that's going on. And she knows all the trends and all the algorithm updates and all the hashtags and all the like everything that's going on. Like she's like constantly posting stuff like, here's something that's happening. This is going viral. Everyone's talking about this. And then she takes that and she infuses it into my content and our clients' content to help them to stay relevant. And so, you know, I don't know like what is the best way to stay up to date besides being a consumer of social media. And I think there's a healthy amount of consuming that you do have to do if you want to stay relevant and understand what's going on. And so you can do that, but ultimately like when you have the chance, if that's not your forte, or if you're not a social media person and don't love like watching TikToks all day, finding somebody on your team who does love that thing and just wants to do that all day can be really, really valuable.
I know one thing that was also really important, especially in my early days in entrepreneurship and specifically within filmmaking and making videos, was finding inspiration. I guess, admittedly, I do less of that now, but I guess I'm curious, where do you find your inspiration these days?
So this might be an unconventional answer to this question. But you know, besides in the shower or in the bathroom, which is where like most of my inspiration comes from. But there's a reason for that. The way that I find inspiration is by being bored, is by doing nothing. And I want to say that creatives need to spend time doing nothing. And the reason why is because we get so caught up on being busy and being productive and making stuff happen. And you know what? Most of the world probably operates that way and works really well. I think creatives are a different breed though. Like where you need to take time to have creative space. And creative space means not doing anything. Going on a trip, spending some time in a cabin alone in the woods, just doing nothing. And this is a lost art in today's world, very much so. because you think about it, like we are constantly bombarded with entertainment, with our phones, iPads, like TV, Netflix. Like there's no shortage of entertainment in the world today. So the dopamine hits that we're constantly getting from stuff, and we've become addicted to that dopamine, the need to have that all the time. We've lost the art of like being bored. Yeah. And boredom nowadays, I think a lot of the problems with like depression and anxiety and everything that's happening in the world right now comes down to that. It's that dopamine addiction. It's the I'm not a doctor, so I'm not like an expert on that topic, but I do feel like it's just a constant need for attention, for entertainment, for that dopamine quick hit. And what happens is when you're addicted to that, when you are sitting down somewhere quietly doing nothing, you feel boredom. What is boredom? Boredom is just an unmet need for entertainment, right? It's the result of an addiction. We're addicted to entertainment, right? I can't just sit by myself and do nothing without feeling pain inside, right? And so, a lot of this comes from a lot of the internal work that I've done, but you start to realize that boredom is kind of it's a representation of your own trauma, of what's going on inside, the things that bother you, the things that you struggle with. And the world today doesn't know how to be bored. And it's because we're so used to being so entertained, being bored hurts and nobody wants to do it. And so that's not good for creatives, because creatives need to be bored. Yeah. It's those times when I'm honestly, for me, it's laying in bed in the morning, when I'm like just waking up, when ideas will hit me, because I don't have a phone within my reach. There's nothing I can do except lay there. And if I want to do anything else, I have to get up, right? And I don't want to get up because I'm still tired, right? So like boredom, right? Or being in the shower. Like you're not on your phone in the shower, or usually while sitting on the toilet, maybe sometimes. But it's like those moments of quiet space where you don't have any of that distraction and you're not doing anything. That's where the most inspiration comes from. So last year, my wife and I went on a cruise for 4 days, and it was the intention of the cruise was for me to gain that creative space and really figure some things out. It was after all this stuff started happening, and I was trying to figure things out, and I really wanted to figure out like what my purpose is and what my mission is, and get some clarity on some internal things. And we spent 4 days on a cruise. We didn't even get off the boat for 4 days, so like didn't go on the excursions or anything. We just spent 4 days on the boat, and I spent most of the time, we did some of the things on the boat, but most of the time sitting in this lounge area that I found in a comfy armchair, just with a notepad, with a journal, and like hours on end, just thinking, just letting myself process. And I think that would be really uncomfortable for most people, because that's hard. And, I'm the type where I like having that type of space. I know not everyone is like that. But even whether you are or not, like I think it's healthy for people to have sometimes. And so we spent that time doing that. And I got to tell you that those 4 days that was some of the most impactful moments of my entire life. What I gained from that trip, from that cruise in 4 days completely changed the entire trajectory of everything that I'm doing now, and will result, I believe, in millions, if not tens of millions of dollars in revenue, simply because of being bored for a few days. And like I said, it's not something that people like to do today, or that they are willing to do, because it hurts. It brings up that pain. But if you're willing to suffer through it and figure it out, like that's really where inspiration comes from, is those quiet moments.
Yeah. So maybe in addition to the ability to be bored, what do you see are like essential skills for an entrepreneur, freelancer, filmmaker to have?
Yeah. I would say that the essential skills that most filmmakers or freelancers need, that most of them don't have, is marketing and sales. it's like we talked about earlier, like the creatives need to understand the entrepreneur part of the equation if you want to be successful at this. And it's not just, when I say successful, I'm not just talking about making money. Like that'll be a side effect. That's fine. But like Earl Nightingale says that success is the pursuit of a worthy ideal, right? And so if you really want to be a creator and produce at the highest level, you're not going to be able to do it if you're broke. So you got to figure out how to make money with it if you want to be able to do it. And so especially in today's day and age where everybody wants to be like a solo creator, and I think that's a really awesome thing that's happening in the age of the creator, it's more important than ever for you to have those skills of marketing and sales. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be the one that does that long term. When it comes to hiring a team, you can find people that are good at marketing and sales that can take on some of that load for you. But you have to know it. You have to understand it, because no one is ever going to be able to sell or market you and what you do better than you do, because nobody else will ever, it doesn't matter how much you pay them or how invested they are, or profit shares or whatever, is ever going to have the same level of conviction in you and your personal mission and your cause and your business and who you want to help as you do, right? And conviction is the key to marketing and sales. Like if you're out there trying to sell your stuff, trying to get people to buy it, and you're struggling, the first thing I would ask myself is, do I really believe in what I'm selling? Do I really believe that this is the golden key to my client's success? Do I really believe that it's going to give them everything that they want, that it's the best that it can be, that I'm the best in the world at this? Do I really believe that? And if there's any shadow of a doubt or anything like that, that is coming out through your body language, through what you say, the words you use. It's completely subconscious. You have zero control over it. But your belief, your level of conviction will come out and will be transferred to your prospects. I always say that sales is a transfer of belief. That's literally the whole point of selling, is to transfer your belief to somebody else. Because that's the person on the other end of the phone, they don't believe. They don't know whether this is going to work. Can I do it? Is it going to work for me? Do the market conditions facilitate this? Do I have time? Do I have enough money? Like those are all their doubts about it. Whatever it is that you provide for them, if it's filmmaking or if it's social media or whatever. And so ultimately, sales is a transfer of belief. Your belief level, your conviction in your service or whatever it is that you offer is getting transferred to the prospect, whether you like it or not. And they will adopt your belief level. And so the more conviction you have in selling your service, the more you're going to sell it. And it's the reason why, as the creator, nobody else can sell it as well as you can, because they could never have that same level of conviction as you do about what you do.
You know, it's interesting. Hearing you talk, I feel like it kind of makes me realize, in a good way, just how many mistakes I've made along the way in my journey. I guess I'm curious, like maybe you could share some of your mistakes, or maybe one of your biggest mistakes, like what, if you could go back, like what's something you would change, or one skill set you should have learned or would have done, some kind of mistake.
Okay, so there was this one time when I was shooting a music video, and we had this whole thing. So we were doing, it was a one-take music video. Oof. Yeah, they're the worst, right? And so they're fun, but they're hard, and you do multiple takes, and it was tricky, and it involved a lot of people. We had the singer, and then we had like 10 or 20 other people that showed up as extras to come in the video and all that kind of stuff. It was early in the morning. We wanted to get there like first light, golden hour type thing. Everybody was there. We'd coordinated this for weeks, got it all figured out. Everybody showed up at the location. It was outside, okay, which in and of itself is difficult because weather and all that kind of stuff. So we get there, everybody's ready to go, and I pull out the camera, get ready to shoot, and I realize
no card, no battery.
I didn't bring the batteries. And I was like, oh my goodness. So, and my house was like 20 minutes away. So this was like, okay, I have to go back to my house. I got to get batteries. Like, who shows up on set without batteries for their camera? So I get there, I don't have batteries. I go, okay, I have to drive back. Like, can you guys wait for 40 minutes, basically, while I drive back to my house to get the batteries and then come back? So I did that, went back to the house. The batteries were, of course, on the charger. Sitting there, I got it all ready the night before, ready to go, and then just forgot to pack them. The batteries are in there, grab them, drive back to the set. So they're all sitting there like outside in the sun waiting for 40 minutes. I get back and I'm like, okay, let's do this. We got this. Like energy's high, like pumping everybody up. Let's do it again. We put the batteries in. I hit record. No SD card.
Oh no.
And I had left the SD card at my house. I also didn't have that.
Jeez.
So it was another drive. And it was like, well, we can't shoot this, so now I got to go back to my house and get the SD card so that we can actually record. And nobody had an extra one or anything. And so I made another trip, 20 minutes back to my house, got the SD card, 20 minutes back. By the time I got back, we were so late that we had completely lost the light. It wasn't working anymore. Everybody was hot and tired. And we ended up having to just cancel the shoot and reschedule it for another day, which is hard when you have like 10 or 20 people on set that are relying on you, and now you're trying to schedule them for another day and get it all to work. And so we did it. We did end up getting it done later on a different day and got the shoot done. But that was a very embarrassing mistake, because nothing makes you feel small like forgetting an SD card or batteries, or both individually on separate occasions during the same morning when you're a filmmaker and that's what you do.
Dang. I have left my card twice, but in each of the instances I was 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
And it was not quite as timely. So I feel the pain of that.
It hurts.
We've talked, we're kind of bouncing back and forth here between, kind of the work stuff and the personal. One thing that I've been working on forever, but even more in the last, few months, maybe a year, is just like a healthy life balance, work-life balance. And I'm curious, like, maybe you could share a little bit about yours. Maybe there's tips and tricks about how you do that, or maybe you're not good at that. You can share that too, but maybe just some thoughts about that work-life balance. It's always so difficult to strike.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I don't actually think of it as work-life balance. I think of it as work-life integration. And this might be a polarizing philosophy, but it's just the way that I've always looked at it. And I think that people try too hard to balance both of them. Like, I'm going to spend some time over here, I'm going to spend some time over here. And certainly there's an amount of balance that has to happen. But for me, it was always just like, how do I just integrate all of it? Because my personal life, just as much as my business, is part of my life's work, right? If you think about it, like, it's not like I'm an entrepreneur over here and I'm building something and then I'm just like a family guy here. It's all part of the whole point. The whole point is to serve the mission, right? The mission of, this is my life. What do I want to build out of it? What do I want to create? Part of what I want to create is a family and a solid relationship with my wife and with my kids. And I also want to build a business, and I want to help people, and I want to make an impact and like do all these things. And like, so I look at it as, if I see myself as a creator, all of these things are essentially creations of mine, or it's the work that I'm putting into the world. It's the impact that I'm making, and all of it is part of it. And so, and my wife is 100% on board with this as well. Like she agrees. Like we integrate our work and our life together so that it just all happens and kind of flows seamlessly, more than trying to segment and separate it. And the thing is, like, it also applies to how we raise our kids and everything too, because we want our kids to grow up to be entrepreneurs, or at least to understand entrepreneurship, understand money and wealth and success and how it all works, and personal development and all of that kind of stuff. And so we like them to be at home. The reason why we work at home is so that they can see us working. They get to see what we do. I just think that's so much better than like, I go to the office for 8 hours a day and then I come home and it's family time. It's always family time. Like it's family time is just, that's life, right? It's just part of it. So I'm like, I work from home. My wife works from home as well. Our kids see that. We have a nanny that comes and helps out with the kids during the day so that we can get stuff done. But like, it's a very strict rule of ours that like, our nanny doesn't take the kids to their house. They watch the kids at our house because we want them there with us. If I'm working on something or whatever and my kids come running in, like, it doesn't bother me. I'm not upset about it. If I'm on a call, like I introduce them to the people I'm talking to. Yeah. Like it's just, and if somebody's not okay with that, I'm like, you're not my people. Like this isn't going to work out, right?
Like that. Yeah.
I'm a dad. I got kids and I got to play with them. And so, yeah, I do spend the time, you know, if I'm at work sometimes. And then and when I get off work, I try to be as present as possible with them off work and play with them and everything like that. But then in general, I just kind of see it as like, as integration more so than balance.
Yeah, I think the struggle for me is, I think that's very insightful. I think I should try to adopt that mentality. I think for me, the struggle is, I think if you looked at my work hours and my family or home life hours, like that part probably looks healthy enough. I think it's more like in my mind that like when I'm at work, maybe, or when I'm in the work zone, maybe too much of like the personal thoughts are coming in. Then I'm at my home and family life and too much of the work thoughts are coming in. And so it's interesting. I think I have some growing to do there.
Well, I will say there are times when you need to get into a deep work state, right? And there are times when I get it into a deep out of work state. Like, hey, we're taking the kids to Disneyland for 3 days. I tell my team, I'm off, I'm unplugged, like you don't have access to me. And we definitely do that as well, because like you got to have that. You want to be able to pour into your family like deeply, and you want to be able to pour into your work deeply. So in that sense, yes, I would say there are those times when you have to do that. But in general, if you looked at like when we're not in those extremes, the life and work just kind of like come together seamlessly. Yeah. And it's just all of the above all the time.
Yeah. You know, I know you're a multi-talented dude. What is something that you're not talented at? What is something you're bad at? And so how do you and how do you overcome that? You know, I'm specifically maybe on the work side, like, and how do you overcome that?
Yeah. So the one thing that I'm really, really, really bad at is getting things done.
Interesting.
And some people are, I told my dad that once, and I was like, yeah, I'm just terrible at getting anything done. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like seeing that I'm an entrepreneur and I've grown all these businesses and everything. He's like, you get a lot of stuff done. I was like, no, honestly, like other people get stuff done for me.
Yeah. Like completing things?
Yeah. Tasks, to-do lists, like they are my enemy. It's funny, you could take something that I'm really excited about doing, and if you put it on my to-do list, I will not want to do it.
Sounds familiar.
So it's like, oh, I've got this really cool interview that I'm doing with Caleb. It's going to be so much fun. And as soon as it goes on a to-do list, it's like, why do I have to do that? Yeah. Right. So for me, getting things done. So I look at it this way. In a business, there are 3 skill sets that are required, 3 levels of value is what I call it. And you've got the visionary, you have the strategic, and you have the tactical, right? And you need all 3 of those, like in a whole business, in every role, every department. Like you need the people who are the visionaries, who can just dream about what we're creating, the strategists who can figure out, like, that are good at the mazes, right? How do we actually get there? How do we solve all the obstacles and get past them to get to that dream that the visionary has? And then the tacticians are the people that are like actually boots on the ground getting the stuff done. And most people are really good at 1 or 2 of those things. Rarely are people good at all 3. And so I think everybody has to figure out which part of that spectrum am I on? Am I more the visionary side, or am I more the tactical side? I am definitely more the visionary side. Very much like head in the clouds, dreamer. Like it's funny. My wife will be talking to me, and she's really good now. She recognizes when I just go into the clouds and I've stopped listening to her. And she's so good about it. She'll just stop talking and she'll sit there and wait. And then when she sees that I come back to earth, then she continues. Nice. And it's really funny, but like growing up, I was like that as well. My parents always gave me a hard time for like procrastinating things and not getting stuff done. And like my homework was always done the night before at the latest possible hour. Projects, like anything that I was working on. And it was just, I remember one week where my parents would make us do dishes. And the rule was if you don't do the dishes on your night, then you have to do them the next night. And there was a time where I went, no joke, for a week and a half of not doing dishes, and all the dishes in our entire house were piling up in the sink because I just wouldn't do it. And it didn't matter how much they yelled at me or like got mad or like incentivized me. Like I couldn't get things done, right? I was just too much in the clouds, like just dreaming about ideas and making movies and stuff. Yeah. And so for me, that's the biggest thing, is like the tactical side of actually getting things done. I'm a very slow mover. And it's like we were talking about earlier, every weakness has an opposite strength. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason that I'm a slow mover, and it's because I'm a very deep thinker. I'm an analyst. Like, I analyze things. I'm very careful. I'm very calculated in the way that I do things. I'm very much a thinker in terms of being a visionary, but also a strategist, like strategizing how to do things. And that's a very good asset to have in a business, because we make very smart, calculated moves. But if it's not tempered, it can be a problem, because then you just end up moving slow and you don't keep up with the market or what's going on, and you'll never be successful. So for me, I've had to figure out, like, how do I hire people who are tacticians and who are strategists, who are go-getters, who are the people that, like, just get things done. Like, I have a COO who just compliments me perfectly, and she's like, she doesn't have the visionary bug. All right. If I ask her, like, hey, where do you think we're going with this project, or what's the future of this? She's like, Eric, I don't even know where to start with that question. Yeah. That's your job. Right. But if I give her the vision, if I cast it and I say, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, this is what we're creating, she can make it happen like that. And so as you grow as a creator, I mean, I know a lot of people maybe don't have the ability to go hire a team like this right now. But if you can at least start to become aware of, like, what am I really good at? And what am I not so good at? And what part of that spectrum am I more so on? A lot of creatives are going to be on the visionary side. But it just depends. Like, that doesn't mean you're a better creative or anything like that. It's just like, that's just the tendency, is that we tend to be head in the clouds type of people. Yeah. But if you can figure out where you're at on that spectrum and then fill it in with other people, or find systems or processes or apps or AI or whatever it is to kind of fill in that gap, you'll be able to move so much faster and work so much better.
So on the flip side, you talked about you're bad at, getting things done. Would you say that on the flip side, that maybe your strength is really in that, like, vision? Is you feel like when you think about your skill sets and what you bring to the table, it's in the visionary?
Very much so. Yeah. Vision and strategy. So, I've been through some personal development stuff in books where they'll ask you, like, what is your unique ability? What's your strength? Like, what is your thing? And it's not like I'm a filmmaker, right? It's bigger, broader stuff. And mine, like, what I've identified is vision and strategy. Like, that's me. It's like to have a vision and to be able to strategize how to get there. That doesn't mean I'm always doing the work. Doesn't mean I'm doing the stuff. Like, a lot of times it's orchestrating other people's skills and abilities in order to accomplish that vision. But it's vision and strategy. Vision, being able to see a future that is different than what exists right now, to see something that is intangible and make it tangible. Strategize a way to make it tangible. So, and that to me is, like, for me personally, that's what it means to be a creator. Is to have a vision of something and to bring it into reality, to imagine something that doesn't exist and bring it into existence. And that requires the vision first, the strategy on how to get there, and then actually doing it. And so that's why the 3 levels of value.
And on the strategy side, we say, like, you're creating the roadmap. You're not necessarily walking the trail, and you're not walking the road, but you're creating the roadmap. Is that how maybe you could define the strategy side?
Yeah, that'd be a good way of putting it, because it's coming up with a strategy. It's like figuring out, like, strategically, how can we do this? And I've got people on my team who are also really good strategists, right? And so, like, my COO, she's very tactical. She can get things done, but she's also really good at strategy. It's just the vision part that's, like, just doesn't have that. And so we can sit down and strategize things together, and it's actually really fun. I mean, even for this interview, like, with her and my social media manager, I told you I had a shot list that I had to get. Yeah. Like, they strategize, like, okay, we're doing this, like, Eric's doing this thing, and they do this, like, anytime I go to any event or am on a podcast or traveling somewhere or anything, it's like, we're going to strategize, how do we take advantage of this, get the shots that we need, get this stuff so that we can create content out of it, so that we can create sales opportunities, so that we can do all this stuff. Like, that's the strategy around it. And so, for me, it's mostly, I'm, like, in the visionary stage of, like, here's what I want it to look like. Here's how I want it to feel. Here's the brand. They can come in and help me with, like, the strategy of how to get there. And then, of course, we have, like, our amazing team that's just good at just getting stuff done and making it happen.
Do you have a vision of where you're going to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah. So, the 2 big things that I'm working on right now are, number 1, my media agency, and number 2, my personal brand. So the media agency is my company, right? That's like, and it's relatively new. I mean, we were running a production agency. You'll probably remember this, like years ago, before I got into cinema mastery and coaching and everything. And then I just realized that, like, wow, what I really love is creating and producing for people and helping them grow. And so we've gotten back into it now. We just started doing it again earlier this year. So it's pretty fresh. But the media agency is like the big play in terms of the entrepreneurship, like what I'm trying to build, my thing. And, our plan is to take that big. Right now we're focused primarily on content creation for entrepreneurs, for creators, for influencers. We're a done-for-you agency, so we will do everything from like the strategy to the scripting, the shooting, the editing, the publishing, and then like do it every single month for people. So we help them create their content and get it all out there, help them to build their influence and their authority online. That's the majority of what we're doing right now. But ultimately the goal, 5 to 10 years, is that what we're building is a media agency. And media agencies are very powerful. And like if you're a filmmaker and you're listening to this right now, like just think about how powerful this is in the commercial world or in the business world, because media has the ability to scale companies. In fact, like I talked about earlier, social media is marketing. Like that's how people do it. They create ads, they create content. That's how you market a business today. And so ultimately the goal is, right now we have clients coming to us and paying us to produce that content for them. The next step from there is probably to, rather than having them pay us, we just take a percentage of their company and we buy in and we grow it together.
Yeah.
So take a company that has a really good product and is selling really well by word of mouth, plug it into our media agency, and then we go, okay, all the content, all the ads and everything to scale that up and do it as a partnership. And then long term, ultimately the goal is that we won't take on clients anymore. We'll actually just go buy our own clients, meaning at that level, when you get to that investment level where it's almost not like, it's like from entrepreneur to investor. Now we're looking at, well, what companies are like that are perfect, ideal companies that we can go in and buy. And we'll just acquire the company that already has a really good product and everything, a good team, and then we'll plug them into our media agency, scale them with that, and then sell it or hang on to it or whatever we do. But then now we're making an even bigger impact that way. So that's kind of the goal with the media agency, is like, let's go that way. I was really inspired by Ryan Reynolds. I don't know if you know his story, but
a little bit.
Yeah. So like he was Deadpool, right? And he did that whole thing. He's been an actor and been in some big movies and well known for that. He actually started 2 years after Deadpool came out. He started a media agency called Maximum Effort, alluding to Deadpool, which is awesome. And he created that media agency, started creating content and ads for a lot of his properties that he owns. And he actually bought a few years ago Mint Mobile, right, which was like a struggling cell carrier. And that had a good product, had good service and everything, but just wasn't marketed well and wasn't one of the big ones like T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T. So he went and bought that, plugged it into his media agency, started creating content and ads around it, built this hype around Mint Mobile where it became this huge thing for a while and everyone was talking about it. It was going viral on social media. And now obviously Ryan Reynolds has star power to work off of, and that helps a little bit, right? But the principle is still the same, is that he was able to plug it into the media agency, build it up, and then he sold it to T-Mobile for $3.2 billion, I think. And I think I read that he took home like $300 million personally on that acquisition. In contrast, he made like $40 million on Deadpool, right? So it's like this creator like became an entrepreneur, and it's a really cool story. And I was really inspired by that. And I was like, man, that's exactly what we're building. Like this thing that's going to have the power to make things bigger, to grow other people, to help them get to new levels. So anyway, that's the media agency. And then the personal brand is the other thing that I'm working on right now. And I know that kind of sounds weird to say, like, I'm working on my personal brand, right?
Not to me.
Well, I think a lot of people see that as like, oh, I'm figuring out like how to put out a facade. How to, like, what am I going to create? I'm going to go do a photo shoot and like it's going to be glamorous and I'm going to put on these clothes and do that kind of stuff. Like when I say working on my personal brand, what I mean is, well, first of all, when I say personal brand, it's not the photo shoot, it's not the website, it's not the design. Your brand is you. right? You are your brand, your character, your personality, your unique combination of morals, values, interests, everything that makes up you and what you like and your interests and your passions and your creativity. That's your personal brand. And like, so if that's your personal brand, like when I say I'm working on my personal brand, I'm not working on like coming up with an image or a photo or something like that. Like I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
I'm quite literally just trying to become the best version of myself. And to me, that's
And doing it publicly a little bit.
And
too,
doing it publicly, yeah. To me, that's the whole purpose of life.
Yeah.
Is for us to come and like be trialed and to experience things and to learn and to grow and to become better. And I know it's like a little bit different, but that's the way that I see my content and everything that I'm doing around my personal brand is like the goal actually isn't to make money. Like it's not to build a business. Like it is a business by nature because I want it to be able to grow big. And in order for it to be big, it needs a team of people. It needs help. And I've got awesome people that are like supporting me in growing that. But the personal brand is tied very heavily to the personal mission. Like I don't create content because I need people to follow me or because I need to make money or to get sales or whatever. Those happen. They're good side effects. But my whole approach with my personal brand and my social media is what is the thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life? And I'm just going to do that thing, whether it works or not, or whether people like it or not, or whether it makes money or not. That doesn't really matter. It's just like if I could pick one thing or one mission to serve for the rest of my life until my deathbed, this is the thing that I would do. And so I'm going to start doing that now and just continue working on that goal. So in a way, it's kind of like separate from the business. Although what I would say is that the business exists in support of that mission. So it's kind of a different way of looking at it. I'm actually writing a book right now.
Oh, nice.
And it talks all about this, but this is kind of like the whole premise of the book is like rearranging your paradigm on what it means to be a creator into rather than like I just create content as a tactic to drive leads into my business to I create content because I'm on a mission, because I have a purpose, and I'm using the best tool, social media, to rally people to that cause, to impact people. And I have a business that supports that cause. And so it's a subtle shift, but it's really powerful.
Yeah. Love that. So I know for me, I'm constantly trying to balance like the risks of, pursuing business ideas and financial risks with also like caring for my family and make sure I'm being responsible with our finances and providing. And I'm curious, like, what's your mentality and how do you approach that?
Risk. Yeah. So the funny thing is I feel like after so many years of doing this, which I know sounds funny because I'm not that old, but I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years now. Yeah. And after enough years of that, I feel like I've almost gotten numb to risk. It's like it doesn't even affect me anymore. It's just whatever the goal is, whatever the thing is that we have to do it, and we're just going to take the risk, I guess is what people would call it. I wasn't always that way, for sure. Like that came with experience. And I will say that I remember one of the first big risks that I took as an entrepreneur was right after it was right before I was about to get married to my wife. And we were engaged. We were about a month away from getting married. And I was running my business as a filmmaker, like trying to make it work as a videographer. She was working a full-time job. She was making like $30K a year or something like that, working full-time. And we were a month away from getting married. And I remember I got a letter from my tax accountant. And he was like, hey, you owe the IRS $7,000 from last year. And nowadays it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but at the time, that was everything that I had. Yeah. And it devastated me. It was like so hard. And I remember just being like sitting there like on the verge of tears, like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this happen? Like, I'm supposed to get married in a month. I don't even know if my father-in-law approves of me. Like, I'm this starving artist. My wife's got a job, like she's like all successful and stuff. And I was like, what am I gonna do? It just crushed me and made me hurt so bad. And I remember it was a defining moment of, I got to figure out something. I have to make a decision right now. Am I going to quit, give up, and go get a 9-to-5 job? Or am I going to just go all in on this? Am I just going to make it happen? And luckily, I'm not really the giving up type. And so I was like, I'm going all in on this. Yeah. I was like, I'm going all in on this. And luckily my wife was like super supportive of that as well. And she's like, we're going to go all in with you. Not just that like I support you, but she said, I'm going to quit my job. And she actually quit her job and she came and like started working with me. And this was like when we were broke, and we just had the realization that like, if this is really our dream, if we really want this, and this is what we're trying to build, like we have to be all in. It's like they say, burn the boats. You can't have a plan B. Mm-hmm. And that was not the safe move. Let's say that was the risky move. Yeah. But together it was easier, I think, for us making that decision together. But ultimately it ended up becoming what it is now, and that we're able to build this big thing, and all because of that leap of faith, that jump, that like we're going to burn the boats. We're actually going to go all in on this thing that we love. And in the moment of the worst pain, of the most risk, we decided that for this to work, we have to be all in. And we went all in on it, and amazing things happened. And
you've had a good working relationship with your wife?
Amazing.
Wow.
Amazing. And honestly, like, I don't think that most couples can do that. I think I didn't know this getting married to her, but I've learned now that we just happen to complement each other perfectly in our skill sets. And that was just a lucky coincidence or divine providence, like whatever you want to call it. But so I wouldn't say like every couple should do this or they should all work together. It just happened to work for us. But yeah, we do have that really good combination of skill sets that complements each other.
I feel like in our industry and beyond, but specifically in anything in kind of in like entertainment and like, taking risks like this, there's always a fear of failure. At least for me, I'm always, afraid of that. How do you overcome those like feelings of, potential failure?
So the way that I look at failure is that failure is not the end. It's a stepping stone. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. It reminds me of the story of the tortoise and the hare. So the tortoise and the hare, like the tortoise takes off really slow. The hare like goes crazy super fast. And then the hare's like, oh, I'm so far ahead, I'm just going to take a nap. And then the tortoise ends up winning. And the moral of the story, right, is slow and steady wins the race. Mm-hmm. The problem is that's not true at all. It's like slow and steady does not win the race. Not typically. Like for as long as I've been an entrepreneur, whenever I went slow, I was not successful. And for as long as I've been an entrepreneur, it's been anything but steady. And so I think the moral of that story is actually wrong. It's not really about slow and steady wins the race, because the hare, had the hare gone fast and steady, would have won. Or had it gone, I lost my train of thought. I don't remember what I'm trying to say. But the idea is like, it's not about slow and steady. The moral of that story, the reason why the hare lost the race is because he stopped. That's it. He quit. He gave up. Yeah. And that's the way I look at failure. The only way to truly fail is to quit, is to stop, right? As long as you continue going, like you're still moving forward. Will you have setbacks? Yes. Will you have peaks and valleys? 100%. Like that's what you're signing up for. That's part of the process. And after going through so many of those, it gets to the point where, like I was talking about, where I almost become numb to it. It's just like, I know this is going to happen. Like we're going to have really good moments. And we're going to have really bad moments. I had one of my clients the other day ask me, his name's Tom. He's got this production company that he's running. He's been really successful, like made multiple six figures, like getting big clients. He's had projects that have paid him six figures. As a filmmaker. And so he's grown really big and done really well. He hired this whole team. He had like 4 or 5 people on his team. He was crushing it. Everything was going really well. And then the clients stopped coming, and the marketing wasn't working, and the sales calls weren't working. He wasn't bringing people in, and he was losing revenue, and all this stuff was happening. And he made the very difficult decision to fire his team, to let them all go and go back to the basics, because it was what he had to do in the moment. And he asked me, this was just a few weeks ago, he said, how do I start over from square one? Like, how do you handle this? Because I'm starting over. And I told him, I said, Tom, you're not starting over. You're not at square one. You're at like square 500. Like you've already gained all of this experience. You're just moving to the next thing. You're just gaining more experience. You're adding another experience. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're going up and down peaks and valleys, you're still moving forward. Every step is another step into more experience. You are gaining and you're building on top of what you've already built for the last however many years doing this. And so when you fail, or when something goes bad, or you have an obstacle or whatever, we always joke, my wife and I, about go around the leaf, right? You ever watch A Bug's Life? Where the leaf falls down and the ants are like freaking out. There's a leaf, what are we gonna do? And then the queen or the princess comes in, she's like, go around the leaf, right? Like, oh, we can go around it, right? Like that's what most people call failure, is actually just a leaf in their path and they just need to go around it. But you're still moving forward. It's not like it's not really a failure. It's not a failure until you quit, till you stop, till you give up. Otherwise, if it's not that, then it's just the next stepping stone towards where you're trying to get.
Nice. I like that. Changing gears a little bit, there's so much talk about AI right now, and especially in every industry, really, but specifically in the creative world. And obviously, it's going to have some level of impact. I guess I kind of want your hot take on maybe what is like the impact that maybe you see coming, that maybe I don't see coming, or maybe our industry doesn't see coming. How do you see it progressing here?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I think AI is super interesting, like cool technology. There's obviously all the movies out there that maybe frame it as potentially a bad thing, and it could be, honestly. So there's always that potential fear. I try to lean into like my belief in humans and that they will, try to make that not become a bad thing. But in general, I think I'm excited about AI. Here's kind of my philosophy on it, is that, and I made a post about this recently, and I basically said that with AI, here's my goal. And it is, right now, the goal is to use AI as a tool to become more efficient. And that's really what it is a way to become more efficient, to produce more stuff faster, to just use it as a tool. And that's my short-term goal, is capitalize on the technology in order to be more efficient, to make more money, to grow faster, to whatever. The long-term goal is to focus more on human connection in everything that I do. The reason being that anytime a new emerging trend or technology comes around and becomes a big thing, when it becomes big, it creates a gap for the opposite, right? The more AI becomes prominent and we start following like robots on social media, and we have all those things start happening and people are using AI, people are going to crave more human connection. Like actually having a conversation in person like this with a human, like this is different than like seeing each other online, right? And we're both real humans, okay?
You thought I was an AI robot before today.
I didn't know whether you were or not. But that's the thing, is like, so right now the goal is focus on using it as a tool to be as efficient as possible. Long-term focus on human connection, more human connection in everything that I do, because that's ultimately what people are going to crave.
Nice. What can we look forward to from Eric Thayne here in the coming, months or years? Like, I know you've done all kinds of things, courses, products, projects. Maybe you can give us a little sneak peek into your innovative and visionary mind of what's coming next.
Yeah. So I'm writing a book. This has not been announced officially to anyone until now. It probably will be by the time this goes live, which is why I'm okay saying it. But that's the big exciting thing that's happening for me right now.
Awesome. Congrats.
Thank you. I've felt like I had a book in me for a long time. Now that I say that, that sounds weird. But I've wanted to write a book for a long time.
All good.
I've wanted to write a book for a long time. I had these ideas and insights about creativity and stuff that I felt like needed to get out there, and I finally decided to just sit down and do it. And it's been a lot of like 14-hour days of just like deep work and writing, and to get this book and to get it right and to organize it and get all the information out there. But the book is, I'm really excited about it because it's about content creation. It's about video content. It's about using video to build influence, to build your brand as a personal brand. But it has all the tactics on how to do that and how to go viral and all that stuff. Like our agency, like in the projects that I've worked on, like we've produced 500 million views for clients, and like we've had some experience in doing all of that. And so it talks about how to do all that. But then what I'm most excited about is that it goes a lot deeper than that, and into a lot of the themes that we've been talking about today, in terms of like what it means to be a creator. Like, why should you create content outside of using it as a tactic or a strategy to drive leads into your business? Like, what does it mean to actually switch that paradigm and start thinking of yourself as a content creator, putting the emphasis, the focus on the content? Like, the content is the business, right? And the business then supports that mission. And so it goes deep into those themes of the reason why most entrepreneurs fail with social media content is because they're literally just looking at it as a strategy to drive leads in their business. And so it's very low effort. It's very like, just do the minimum I can to get it out there and to get it done so that I can say, look, I did it. And then your audience recognizes that, and they can see that you're not trying, and then the entrepreneur wonders why it's not working, right? Mm. And so as we enter the age of the creator, people care so much about working with people, and they want to know those people and like them and trust them, and that's just becoming more and more important. The further we go into this, people don't want to buy from brands anymore. And so the ability to like create a persona online, actually create your presence, it takes a lot of heart. It takes a lot of personal development. And like some of the struggles we talked about earlier that I've been through in order to get there, like some of that internal work to really like come across authentically and genuinely online, so that you can create a deep emotional connection with your audience to where it actually becomes useful, right? Or it actually, what I mean by that is where it actually serves your mission or your purpose or what you're trying to do. And so the book covers all of that, and it's kind of a different take on content creation and being a creator. But I'm really excited to get out in the world. It'll be cool to see what people think.
Nice. Well, I'm excited for you, man. And speaking of content creation, I know there's kind of a tiff when it comes to, your purist filmmaker, cinematographer, director, and then like the content creators today of like horizontal and vertical video. And I think I already know your answer here, because I was going to ask you, horizontal versus vertical. I think I know your answer, but maybe you can shed some light on kind of where you stand with that.
What do you think my answer is?
Both.
I mean, it has to be, right? Yeah, that's funny. I see all those conversations and the purist filmmakers like you're talking about that are just like going hard on vertical video and how it's like the worst thing and it's ruining our craft and everything. And I don't really get it, honestly. I think that like if you're of that mindset that like vertical is bad or whatever, like you're already irrelevant. Like a long time ago. Right, because this has been a thing.
Yeah,
this has been a thing for a while, and the thing is, the craft evolves over time, and so to be a creator and to be a filmmaker and everything, like the goal is really like let's evolve with it, let's adapt with it. The reason why vertical exists is because all of the devices that we're using to consume media now, like people watch 80% of content now on their phones or on iPads, like they're all vertical, so it actually kind of makes sense that it would be formatted that way. Like we don't just watch things in movie theaters anymore. That could change actually, and this is really interesting to think about, is that like, Apple's making a big bet that VR headsets or AR headsets is going to be the next evolution of computing. And if that pans out to be true, those are actually more horizontal, right? And so like it would be interesting to see if we actually make a return back to horizontal because of that in terms of content creation. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything should be vertical. I still think that movies probably will stay horizontal for a long time. There was that one app where they tried to like make TV series.
Fully vertical.
Yeah, fully vertical.
Sometimes they're re-editing, I think, movies that way, but yeah.
Yeah, so that was either like too ahead of its time or like, honestly, I don't know if that was ever really going to pan out because it feels weird in that format.
Yeah.
But as far as content goes, I think that it makes a lot of sense. And so my philosophy on that is like adapt to it, evolve with the craft, it's happening whether you like it or not. Like you can sit and complain about it and be a grumpy old man when you're 60 years old and, and be just mad because life screwed you over with vertical video, or you can just adapt and just be part of it. I will say that like I've done some stuff where I've shot in vertical, and I actually
like
really
on a professional camera, like not just your phone.
Yeah, like on a Red.
Right. Yeah. Same.
Right?
Actually. Yeah.
And like I creatively framing for vertical is actually really fun.
It's fun. It's totally different.
Totally, it's a completely different
Focal
ballgame.
length, everything is like just
Yeah.
You're even set. I've found like set design.
Yep.
It's totally different. You're not. You're less about this. It's more of like what's
you're
the ceiling looking
you're looking
like?
at the
And, yeah.
ceiling and the floor. You know, it's totally different, but it's fun actually. And so it's less of like I got to make sure that these lights are outside of the shot, and now more of like, wow, I can bring my lights in really close.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah. But now I have to be thinking about the floor and the ceiling.
Yeah, it's
ceiling
wild.
and floor. So totally different, but it's fun.
You know, another thing too that, you know, I think you do a little bit of this, and I've had other people on the show, you know, who have gone different routes here. You know, going all in on one thing versus really diversifying all your efforts. Like, do you have a hot take on that as well? I mean, I assume, you know, it's a little bit of both, but I think in my life, I've generally gone like all in on one thing at a time. And I'm beginning to think like I need to diversify, you know, maybe a little bit more, but maybe I just want your opinion on that.
Yeah, so whether you go all in on one thing and focus, which is valuable in and of itself, or you diversify into lots of things, which is also valuable in some situations, I think really depends on what phase you're in of that thing. So what is the goal right now? Am I trying to figure out what my thing is? Diversify. Do I already know what my thing is? Maybe focus. Am I trying to scale that thing? Diversify, right? So it's kind of an ebb and flow. This is a question I get all the time from filmmakers because they're like, do I go into a niche or not, right? And most filmmakers are very averse to that idea because they have this perception that if I just do every type of video, I do weddings and events and commercials and everything, I'm opening myself up to more possibilities for more clients. I think the opposite is actually true. What you're doing is by niching down into one thing, you're actually opening up that one door. Whereas if you
Fully
were
open.
fully open, right? Whereas when you're doing everything, you have 20 doors that are just cracked.
Yep, totally agree. Yeah.
And so it's better to have that one door, and you actually create more opportunities for yourself. With like if a client looks at you and they're like, oh, you're the guy who does that, and that's what they're looking for, they're hiring you.
Yeah.
Right? And so like you lose your competition. There's so many benefits to doing that. However, depends on what phase you're in. And so I would say like if you're just starting out and you haven't figured out what that one thing is that you want to do or that one niche that you want to go into, then like you need to diversify. A lot of the filmmakers, it's like you right now where you're at, you need to go try a bunch of things and see what it is that you like to do. Where can you provide the most value? What is aligned with you and your craft and your creativity? And where's your network at? Like, what do they need? What problems can you solve? And if you haven't really figured that out yet, then like, yes, diversify, try lots of things, figure it out. But then once you figure it out and you go like, oh, this is the thing that I love to do, and there's an opportunity here, and I see the direction this is going with the market, and people, I have a good network here, and like I have a strategic advantage with this. Yeah. I see that opportunity. Then like, yes, 100% focus is the name of the game. Like focus on that thing. I have a mentor named Russell Brunson, who I don't know if you know him, but founder of ClickFunnels.
ClickFunnels, yep. Mm-hmm.
And Russell has been my mentor for a long time, and he always says this. He always says, as an entrepreneur, in the funnel world and sales funnels and everything, he says you should focus on one funnel, one offer, and one traffic source until you make $1 million. And that's hard for a lot of people. But I think there's value in that focus, in that I only sell one thing and I only do it through one method and I only do it to one audience, and I'm going to do that until I make $1 million. A lot of filmmakers are like struggling to make 100,000, right? Mm-hmm. And so to do it all the way to $1 million, what it does is it creates this constraint that breeds creativity, right? Where you have to get creative about, okay, how am I going to get this to more people? How am I going to sell it? How am I going to make this happen? Rather than getting to $10,000 in sales and then going, all right, I'm going to go do something else, right? I'm going to start over from scratch, which is what a lot of people do over and over and over again, and they make the same $10,000 or the same $100,000 over and over and over again, rather than continue to build on the same thing. And so that ability to focus until you hit that point is really, really valuable. Once you discover that thing that's like, this is what I want to do. You discover that, you focus on it until, $1 million is an arbitrary number. Until whatever number you decide, like that's the thing, I'm going to focus on that. And then when you want to scale from there, sometimes the answer is to now diversify again, right? Like you can take one product up to a certain point, and then it's like, okay, now I'm going to have 2 products. And then you start diversifying, you start figuring out. That's where you see like these big media agencies that do everything, graphic design and media and content and commercials and everything. But they didn't do that like starting out, most likely. They had to have like, it's so much easier, so much faster to grow with that one thing that works really well, scale that up, and then diversify. So it's like phase 1, diversify, figure out what you want. Phase 2, once you figure out what you want, go all in on that
Deep
thing.
dive.
And then phase 3, maybe if you want to scale, it might be diversifying. Not always. I mean, In-N-Out still only has like 3 items on their menu,
Right.
so it doesn't have to be, but maybe.
So this next segment's going to be a fun one. I haven't done before, so we're going to do it. Eric, it's going to be fun. We're going to live react to a few of these videos I've never seen. I don't think you have either. And we're just going to give our first kind of gut reaction, and, I think it'll be kind of fun. So let's get it started here.
My biggest regret as a videographer is hopping onto the bandwagon of shooting vertically for social media content. Don't do it. Shoot horizontal.
I mean, we just talked about it. I think it really does. It depends on really what you're after. I mean, if you're wanting to be a, feature film director, filmmaker, that vibe, like, yeah, maybe you should keep on shooting like horizontal, because that's probably where that's not going to change, I don't think, in the next 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
But if you're wanting to create content and get clients and serve organizations and businesses, you have to be open and willing to change your method and go with whatever's trending. And you got to have a pulse on what people are watching and how they're watching it.
Yeah.
Agreed?
No, I agree with you 100%. Is what's your goal with content? Like, are you going the Hollywood route? Do you want to shoot commercials? Do you want to shoot Hollywood films? Then that's primarily horizontal. Then build your portfolio of that work. Do you want to do commercial work? For a lot of filmmakers, this has been hard. That they do want to do commercial work, and they've just gotten stuck in this idea of these like beautiful horizontal commercials. But the world really is going to TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, and not that horizontal video doesn't have a place anymore, but it's largely vertical nowadays. And if you want to be relevant as a filmmaker in the commercial world or in the world of helping businesses grow using content, it's vertical.
All right. Let's see what this next one is. This is a tweet from Alex Hormozy. To make more money, you don't need to solve more problems. You need to pick better people to solve them for. What do you think about that, Eric?
I really like this one. I don't agree with everything that Alex Hormozy says, but I think the majority of his stuff is really good. This comes down to basically like one of the most underrated parts of growing a business, or strategies, or like the things that you want to be thinking about, I would say, is who is your client?
Yeah. Saying no to the
Saying
wrong
no.
ones and saying yes to the right ones.
Yeah. Who is your client? Like, are you targeting broke college students? Like, you're not going to make money. Or are you targeting like wealthy real estate investors? Like there's a big difference there in terms of who you're targeting. It's not really a lot of filmmakers especially get so caught up on thinking that the quality of my work is going to be the thing that determines whether I make money or not. And unfortunately, while that is true to an extent, like you want to be good at what you do, a bigger part of it is actually who your client is. Who are you targeting? And so for me, like growing from when I first started, I was targeting local businesses that didn't have a lot of money, and I struggled. And over the years, we've gotten to the point where like we don't work with companies that are making less than at least $1 million a year, right? And we're really looking for people that are making like $10 to $100 million a year. Mm-hmm. That's a completely different clientele. It's a completely different strategy for getting in front of that clientele. It's a lot more networking. But by doing that, like you're kind of guaranteeing, like Alex says, like you're going to make more money because you're picking better people to solve them for. You're picking people that can afford to pay you for them.
And we got one more here from Rich Roll's podcast. Let's see.
How to grow as an artist is to do things that you don't know how to do.
Right.
So, the concept of forcing yourself to to learn new trades, new tricks, new skills. I think that's essential, especially early on in your journey. I think that's what she's getting to here. I mean, I think, and you talked about that as you were getting started. I think you kind of did it more like naturally. You came into this whole world with like so much, of a background in drumline to design and video and music and all of that. So I think that's what she's getting at here. And I think it's a good point.
Yeah, she's saying doing things that you're not good at. Like if you want to grow, like it requires you to be outside your comfort zone. So if you're doing the same things over and over again, you're not really growing. In fact, I don't know if you know Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan. They wrote a book called 10x is easier than 2x, and there's a principle in there where he talks about iterations that I think is really cool. He actually Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours, the 10,000 hour rule, right? He actually says that like there's a flaw with that philosophy, because Malcolm Gladwell says you put 10,000 hours into something, you'll become an expert at it. Well, what Benjamin Hardy says is he's like, it's not about 10,000 hours, it's about 10,000 iterations. Meaning that if you just do the same thing over and over again, for example, if it's content creation, if you go and make a video one day and then you make another video the next day and you just do that every single day and you're not learning from your mistakes, you're literally making the same video over and over and over again. So it's actually trying to make it better incrementally every single time, or like she's saying, doing something that's different or that's new that you haven't done before to make it better, that makes it an iteration, that it gets better and better over time, and that's what's actually going to make you grow.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Dude, seriously, it was so fun. I mean, I love hearing from other, fellow filmmaker entrepreneurs. It makes me feel understood, affirmed. And I hope you had a good time. I hope that you listeners out there learned a lot. Eric's got a lot of wisdom. You can follow him on all the things.
Yeah, all the social media platforms.
Eric Thayne.
At Eric Thayne, pretty much everywhere.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on today. And
it's been awesome chatting with you and seeing what's up. And I've been loving your content too.
Yeah,
so
we'll look forward to your next thing and the book.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Man. Can't wait.
All right, later, guys.
Okay, we'll see you.